Dear students, welcome to MOOC on Human Rights in India. In the course of this module and the coming module, we will look at the National Commission for Scheduled Castes. The learning objectives for this module are twofold. One, we will see the historical background for the setting up of the National Commission for Scheduled Castes, and we will also look at its mandate, functions and powers. Secondly, we will examine how can this body be made more effective. Now let us look at the historical context in which the National Commission for Scheduled Castes was established. If you look, the scheduled castes figure in the lowest rung of the social ladder, in the social hierarchy, and suffered practices like untouchability for many centuries, and they faced discrimination, and it has manifested in a number of ways, including in their access to, let us say, temples, wells, public places, and also led to severe violations like killings, assault, rape, etc. In fact, if you look at the enjoyment of rights by persons belonging to the scheduled castes, you will find that there is a gap between SCs on the one hand and the general population on the other, with regard to the enjoyment of right to education, right to health, right to food, right to clean drinking water, right to livelihood. And these are important human rights issues indeed. And if you look at the situation of scheduled caste women, it is much worse, and they suffer double discrimination on account of belonging to the scheduled caste and being a woman. In fact, if one examines the number of people who are engaged in practices like child labor, bonded labor and manual scavenging, you will find that a high proportion of people belong to persons from scheduled castes. So all these historical wrongs have led to serious violations, and that's why the framers of the Constitution of India have, provided special measures for the advancement of socially and economically backward classes, including SCs. As you know from the preamble of the Constitution, it talks about social justice, economic justice, political justice, and after the Constitution came into being in the year 1950, came into force in 1950, a need for a specialized institutional framework was felt for the monitoring the legislative constitutional safeguards for persons belonging to the scheduled castes, and that's how in 1950 itself a commissioner for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes was appointed, and subsequently a need was felt for making this as a multi-member commission, and that's how in 1978 the Commissioner for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes gave way to a Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes, and in the year 1990 through a constitutional amendment, it was renamed as the National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes, and in 2004 again through another constitutional amendment, namely the 89th Amendment, the National Commission for Scheduled Castes was separated from the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. In other words, the National Commission for Scheduled Castes is a constitutional body. It's an authority which derives its source, it derives its mandate from the Constitution of India. Unlike statutory bodies which are set up under an act of parliament, and as regards its functions, Article 338 clearly explains the functions. I draw your attention to the diagram. Please look at the following diagram for the functions of the National Commission for Scheduled Castes. Article 338 Clause 5 says that National Commission for Scheduled Castes shall, number 1, investigate and monitor all matters relating to the safeguards provided for the SCs under this Constitution or under any other law for the time being in force or under any order of the government, and to evaluate the working of such safeguards. So the operating words are to investigate and monitor and also evaluate the working of constitutional and other legal safeguards. Number 2, to inquire into specific complaints with respect to the deprivation of rights and safeguards of the scheduled castes. These two functions mentioned in class 5.1 and 2 are extremely important, because the National Commission for Scheduled Castes has also been given the powers of a civil court with regard to the exercise of these two functions. Now I draw your attention to number 3. The National Commission for Scheduled Castes shall participate and advise in the planning process of socio-economic development of the scheduled castes and to evaluate the progress of their development under the union and any state. Clause 4, it says to present to the President annually and at such other times as the Commission may deem fit reports on the working of these safeguards. Number 5, to make in such reports recommendations as to the measures that should be taken by the Union or any state for the effective implementation of those safeguards and other measures for the protection, welfare and socio-economic development of the scheduled castes. And you can see the function listed under item number 6. Basically, if you look at the items from 1 to 6, one can find that the National Commission's role is essentially as follows. It has a role which is advisory, reporting, investigative, evaluative, remedial, educational and supervisory in relation to the rights of scheduled castes in India. Further, under clause 9 of Article 338, the Union government and every state government is required to consult the National Commission for Scheduled Castes on all major policy matters affecting scheduled castes. For the functions which are outlined in Article 338 of the Constitution, the National Commission for Scheduled Castes has been vested with the powers of a civil court. As I said earlier on, Article 338, Clause 5, 1 and 2 in relation to investigation of the constitutional safeguards and other safeguards or inquiry into complaints, the Commission can summon any person, summon any public document or record, and record affidavits on oath and do a number of measures for discharging the responsibilities entrusted to it under the Constitution. One can see that the National Commission for Scheduled Castes has been given a range of powers under Article 338, and it has also been given certain powers, and in pursuance the Commission has been conducting various activities, and which are all reported in its annual reports, which are submitted from time to time to the President of India, which include visits to states, visits to jails and other institution, review meetings with public sector undertakings, or review of laws, regulations and policies, and so on and so forth. Now let us turn our attention to this aspect of how can the National Commission for Scheduled Castes be made more effective. The Commission has been highlighting certain inadequacies to the government from time to time. For instance, the budget that has been allocated to the Commission is insufficient enough. If you look at a few years back annual report of 2015-16, it says that a sum of nearly 15 crore was allocated to the National Commission for Scheduled Castes, and after accounting for salaries and other committed expenditure, a paltry sum of rupees 3 crore is left for the Commission, which isn't far enough, and considering the magnitude of the issue, considering the enormity of the problems, considering the gap between the constitutionally guaranteed rights and its practice or its realization at the ground level, the Commission needs far more financial resources. The Commission doesn't have a separate budget head. In fact, it is tied to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and the funds for the National Commission for Scheduled Castes are given as a part of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Commission also doesn't have power to engage consultants, short-term contract, manpower on a short-term contract basis. All of this affects the functioning of the Commission. In fact, for a body to be really effective, it needs functional autonomy, operational autonomy, administrative autonomy, and the Commission has made a series of recommendations towards this end, and hopefully in the times to come it should get better and better. And secondly, the Commission also found that there are a number of other practical issues which affect its functioning. For instance, the powers of a civil court. It can summon officials, be it from the central government or from the state governments or from the public sector undertakings, enforce their attendance, ask for any public documents, records, but it cannot issue injunctions. The Commission feels that it is constrained because at times, keeping it as a recommendatory body and keeping in view that there are investigation or the inquiry into complaints require remedial action and redressal of the grievances, there is a need for the Commission's words to make its recommendations binding. So in other words, it has asked for the amendment to its powers in order to invest with greater powers particularly the power of a civil code, and to enable it to give binding orders. So in summary or in conclusion, we have seen the historical background to the creation of a National Commission for Scheduled Castes. We saw how centuries of discrimination has impoverished the persons belonging to scheduled castes, and affected their social status, economic status, political status, and left a gap between them and the general population. And we have also seen the institutional framework for the protection of the scheduled castes, which evolved over a period of time from 1950, starting with a commissioner for a scheduled caste, which was subsequently made into a multi-member commission, and then rechristened as a National Commission for Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe, and how it was bifurcated in the year 2004 as a separate commission for National Scheduled Caste and a separate National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. And we have also seen a range of functions entrusted to the Commission to supervise the monitoring of the constitutional safeguards, other legislative safeguards. In fact, a number of legislations in this connection have been enacted by the Parliament of India. For instance, right from 1955, Protection of Civil Rights Act, and thereafter, there were many land reform acts which came in, and there was a Prevention of Atrocities Against Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Act, which was done in the year 1989, and rules were framed thereunder. And this act called Atrocities Act was amended in 2015, and again rules were framed under the amended act. The Commission is expected to monitor the implementation of the constitutional safeguards, which basically fall under several heads. There are in fact social safeguards, there are economic safeguards, there are political safeguards, and there are educational and cultural safeguards, and there are service safeguards. If you look at the Constitution of India and the affirmative action that it proposes to achieve is unparalleled anywhere else in the world, and the size and scale of the reservations in education and in employment is truly unparalleled. Yet there is still a huge gap between the general population and the scheduled castes in many areas. Of course, they have got, as a result of reservations, certain political status, but as regards the social and economic status, there is still a long way to go. And though the National Commission for Scheduled Castes has been given a range of functions and also powers, it suffers from a number of inadequacies, particularly shortage of financial resources or manpower resources, and it also needs more powers in order to be truly effective, in order to be a guardian of the protector of the rights of persons belonging to scheduled castes. Thank you. See you in the next module.